Genghis Khan was born into hardship, not power. He did not begin life in a palace, surrounded by wealth, servants, or armies. He was born on the harsh Mongolian steppe in the 12th century, in a world where survival was never guaranteed. Food could disappear with one bad winter. Alliances could collapse overnight. A family could lose everything in a single season. The boy who would one day terrify kings and emperors began life with almost nothing. His birth name was Temujin. The world would later know him as Genghis Khan. To understand how extraordinary his rise was, you have to understand how low he started. When Temujin was still a child, his father was poisoned by enemies. After his father's death, their tribe abandoned the family. His mother was left alone with several children in one of the most unforgiving environments on earth. They survived by gathering roots, fishing, hunting small animals, and enduring hunger. The future ruler of the largest land empire in history grew up knowing weakness, poverty, and betrayal long before he knew victory. As a teenager, Temujin was captured by a rival group and held prisoner. Many people would have disappeared into history at that point. He escaped. That escape became one of the first signs of the man he would become. He was patient, resourceful, determined, and impossible to break. He learned early that survival depended not only on strength, but on loyalty, timing, and intelligence. The Mongolian steppe at that time was divided among many tribes. They raided each other, formed temporary alliances, broke them, and fought constantly. There was no unified Mongol nation. There were only rival clans competing for animals, land, and prestige. Temujin saw something others did not. He understood that divided tribes would remain weak. United tribes could become unstoppable. He began gathering followers. Some joined because they admired him. Some joined because he protected them. Some joined because he defeated them and gave them a better future under his rule. What made Temujin different from many leaders of his time was that he often promoted people based on skill and loyalty, not noble birth. In a world ruled by bloodlines, this was revolutionary. A capable warrior from a poor family could rise under him. That created deep loyalty. He also built relationships through marriage alliances and personal bonds. He rescued his wife Borte after she was kidnapped by enemies, and this victory strengthened his reputation. Over time, more tribes joined him or were defeated by him. Slowly, through diplomacy, war, strategy, and relentless determination, Temujin became the dominant force of the steppe. In 1206, a great tribal assembly was held. There, Temujin was declared Genghis Khan, often translated as universal ruler or Great Khan. This moment marked the birth of a new power. The Mongol tribes, once divided, were now under one leader. But Genghis Khan understood that unity alone was not enough. He needed structure. He reorganized his army using a decimal system. Groups of 10 men formed units. 10 of those made 100, then 1,000, then 10,000. This made command clear and efficient. Orders could move quickly. Discipline could be enforced. Merit mattered more than noble status. It was a military machine designed for speed and control. He also introduced strict laws, often referred to as the yasa. Theft, betrayal, and desertion were harshly punished. Loyalty and obedience were rewarded. In a chaotic tribal world, this created order. Once Mongolia was united, Genghis Khan turned outward. His first major campaigns were against neighboring powers in northern China. These states had cities, walls, farmland, engineers, and huge populations. On paper, the Mongols looked weaker. In reality, they had developed a new style of warfare that many settled civilizations were unprepared for. The Mongol army was built for movement. Each warrior often had multiple horses, allowing rapid travel over enormous distances. They were expert horse archers who could fire accurately while riding at full speed. They used feigned retreats, pretending to run away before turning to destroy pursuing enemies. They gathered intelligence constantly. They communicated efficiently through signals and messengers. They could strike suddenly, disappear, and return where least expected. This combination of speed, discipline, and tactical flexibility made them devastating. Genghis Khan was also highly pragmatic. If enemies resisted strongly, he could be brutally destructive. Entire cities that refused surrender were sometimes annihilated. This created terror, and terror became a weapon. Other cities, hearing what happened to those who resisted, often surrendered without a fight. But he was not simply a destroyer. He also recognized talent wherever he found it. Engineers, scribes, craftsmen, doctors, and administrators were often spared and brought into Mongol service. He adopted siege technology from Chinese experts. He used administrators from conquered peoples. He built an empire not only with fear, but with intelligence. One of the most famous turning points in his career came with the Khwarezmian Empire, a wealthy Muslim state in Central Asia controlling major trade routes in cities such as Bukhara and Samarkand. At first, Genghis Khan wanted trade, not war. He sent merchants and diplomats. But local rulers seized the caravan, accused them of spying, and executed many of them. Genghis Khan then sent envoys demanding justice. They too were humiliated and killed. This was a massive mistake. For Genghis Khan, killing envoys was more than an insult. It was a violation of diplomatic law and a challenge to his authority. His response was overwhelming. The Mongols invaded the Khwarezmian Empire from multiple directions. They crossed deserts thought impassable. They moved faster than expected. Major cities fell one after another. Bukhara was captured. Samarkand fell. Urgench was destroyed after fierce resistance. The Khwarezmian ruler fled while his empire collapsed around him. This campaign shocked the world. Wealth, walls, and distance no longer guaranteed safety. A force from the steppe had crushed one of the richest powers in the region with terrifying speed. After these victories, Mongol forces pushed farther west. They entered the Caucasus and fought new enemies. In 1223, they defeated a coalition of Russian princes and steppe allies at the Battle of the Kalka River. Europe had now heard the name of this eastern power. Why did Genghis Khan win so often? First, leadership. He chose capable commanders and trusted them. Second, discipline. Mongol armies followed orders with remarkable consistency. Third, mobility. They could move faster than most enemies believed possible. Fourth, intelligence. They gathered information constantly. Fifth, flexibility. They adapted tactics to different enemies and landscapes. Sixth, fear. Their reputation often weakened resistance before battle even began. But conquest was only part of his legacy. Under Mongol rule, large areas of Asia became more connected than before. Trade routes became safer. Merchants could travel long distances under imperial protection. Goods, technologies, and ideas moved more freely between East and West. Historians later described this stability as part of the Pax Mongolica. Paper, gunpowder knowledge, medicine, engineering ideas, textiles, and trade networks spread across Eurasia more efficiently during this era. In that sense, the Mongol Empire helped connect civilizations. Genghis Khan was also relatively tolerant in matters of religion. He ruled over Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and followers of traditional beliefs. He generally cared more about loyalty and taxation than forcing one religion on everyone. For the medieval world, this was unusual. Still, none of this erases the brutality of his campaigns. Millions may have died across the wars connected to Mongol expansion. Cities were burned, populations were massacred, entire regions suffered long recoveries. His empire brought order to some places only after catastrophe had struck first. That is why Genghis Khan remains such a controversial figure. To some, he was a genius state builder who united tribes, rewarded merit, encouraged trade, and reshaped the world. To others, he was one of history's most destructive conquerors. Both views contain truth. In 1227, during a campaign against the Tangut state of Western Xia, Genghis Khan died. The exact cause remains uncertain. It may have been illness, injury, or a combination of factors. Even his burial place remains unknown. One of history's most famous rulers vanished into mystery. But his death did not stop the empire. His sons and grandsons expanded it even further. They conquered more of China, invaded Eastern Europe, destroyed Baghdad, ruled Persia, and created successor states such as the Golden Horde and the Yuan dynasty. The Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in history. All of it began with a boy abandoned in the steppe. So who was Genghis Khan? He was a conqueror, strategist, lawmaker, empire builder, and destroyer. He was a man shaped by a violent world, who then reshaped that world on an even larger scale. He understood human ambition, fear, loyalty, and power. He rewarded talent, but used terror. He connected continents, but devastated cities. He rose from nothing, but changed everything. That is why, more than 800 years later, people still study him. His story is not just about war. It is about how leadership, organization, and vision can transform weakness into dominance. It is also about the terrible cost of power when it is pursued without mercy. The greatest lesson of Genghis Khan may be this: the world often looks toward rich capitals and ancient kingdoms, believing power lives there forever. But sometimes history comes from the margins. Sometimes it comes from the open grasslands. Sometimes it comes riding fast,